Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call to order our special workshop on the budget of the 67th City Council of the City of Guthrie, Oklahoma. I'll note that there is a quorum present with 5 members here. And item number 2 is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the draft fiscal year 2025 general fund, the GPWA fund, and miscellaneous fund budgets, inclusive of but not limited to the general fund, fire, GPWA, hotel motel tax, airport grants fund, water treatment plant, capital projects, CMOM fee fund, capital equipment fund, wastewater treatment fund, utility deposit fund, cemetery care fund, opioid settlement fund, general stabilization fund, GPWA stabilization fund, sinking fund, USDA rural development fund, and the Guthrie Economic Development Fund. Mr. Faulkner.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, you have the entirety of the draft budget in your packet. What I've prepared for tonight is consistent with previous practice, which we will go over the general fund, the GPWA fund, and then both stabilization funds. So we've got that in detail ready to share with you in the PowerPoint presentation. However, if you have any questions that are relative or specific to the funds that are on the agenda, we can go into those questions with the entirety of the draft budget. We're not asking for any action tonight. We've actually added in tonight's budget workshop as a result of not having the Mentimeter scoring process for capital improvement projects that we've typically or traditionally done at the City Council retreat. So because we did not do that this year, we've added tonight to give us an additional budget workshop prior to asking for adoption. So you've got tonight, you've got the next meeting, and then we would ask for adoption typically at the first meeting in September. So, okay. This time, if the team will put my PowerPoint up, that would be great. All right, so as we get into the draft budget, just want to send my appreciation and thanks out to the staff. As you all well know, the budget is a large undertaking for staff. It is something we focus on, as you can tell from our calendar. We start in May, and then, it's not ever officially done, but we get closer to being done with it at the time for final adoption. A couple of notes here as we get into this discussion. The budget should be considered a living, breathing document. So, as you know, again, at the end of the year, we're going to come to you and we're going to decide we need to make these year-end budget amendments to balance the budget. That happens for a variety of reasons, primarily for unforeseen expenses or unforeseen revenues. So if the revenues are greater than what you budgeted, you have a budget amendment at the end of the year so that we can spend those dollars and or incorporate them into the next year. Actual revenue collections may vary. Keep in mind, this is a living, breathing document. For example, we targeted sales tax growth this year at 1%. That was extremely conservative, and we told you that last year. We were being conservative on purpose. I'm glad we did that because not only did we only project a 1% growth, sales tax collections at this point are nearly behind 2%. So we're down 2% from our 1% projected increase in revenue collections. Fund balance numbers may vary as well. So this is largely due to the fact that one-time capital expenditures that haven't been budgeted as part of the capital projects fund or any capital outlay are encouraged to be purchased at the year end. So for example, consistent with what we've done in the past, the Public Works Department will come to you at the end of the year and say, we've got, in this example, we've got 8 open positions. We have a formula where we take 60% of whatever those salary payables would have been, which have already been budgeted. We take 60% of that amount and we ask to use it for capital purchases. This has worked out really well for the Public Works Department. We've been able to make some purchases that have been long overdue. It's unfortunate that we haven't been able to fill all of our positions, But I can tell you that one is not a consequence of the other. It's just the way that this has worked. So what you see today for your proposed year-end figures, your fund balance, will change based on what our year-end purchases are. And that will all be approved by the city council. So you'll see this number tonight, and then we may have an item, the next agenda, or the agenda thereafter, and say, we'd like to spend $150,000, which is 60%. We want to buy X, Y, Z. So then your fund balance decreases by that amount respectively. Due to a decrease in actual collections, the fire department received 2 of the 3 positions which were proposed in the current fiscal year 23-24 budget. So again, as a refresher, remind you last year, we had proposed 3 additional full-time firefighters, as well as looking at adding part-time paramedics. So what we were able to do with what the revenues allowed, we were able to fund 2 of these positions, one of which has just become available. And again, that's due to revenue timing. And then we've also been able to fund 2 part-time paramedics. The part-time paramedics has worked out really well. This allows us to hire paramedics who are providing the highest level of care to come in and work on the EMS side of the fire department, strictly on EMS, which provides a relief for our full-time guys, and they work 1 or 2 shifts a month, depending on what budget and their schedule allows. We've seen some success, great success with this program, and we're going to look to implement additional part-time paramedics in the upcoming budget. Capital purchases have been kept to an absolute minimum for 2025. We've also, keeping in mind, we have a duty to serve the public, and we're going to fulfill that duty to the best of our ability. So we've done everything we can in this proposed budget to say, okay, we don't need to buy that car this year. If we can wait another year, that's what we need to do. But if we wait a year and that Tahoe becomes $75,000 instead of $55,000, we didn't really gain anything. So you'll see some scale on certain projects, and then you'll see that some projects have been left in what they were originally proposed. So jumping right into the fiscal year 24 end fund balance. Taking a look back to fiscal year 22, fiscal year 23, and then budget versus actuals for the current year and our proposed fiscal year 25. You can see between fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23, we had a substantial increase in fund balance. Cities across Oklahoma saw tremendous amounts of growth in sales tax collections between those 2 years. We had record amounts of growth, and this is why last year we were able to provide cost of living adjustments that were greater than normal. They were greater than what had been provided for in both of the collective bargaining agreements. And then also we provided stipends to non-union employees. So these were unprecedented. However, it was tied directly to the fact that we had a larger fund balance than what we had planned on. Fiscal year 24 budget, we have projected to have a greater fund balance in the general fund and in the GPWA fund for a couple of different reasons. The first reason is City Clerk Treasurer Kim Biggs and I have made contact with our financial institution, and we made some changes to the way our funds were being invested. Doing so resulted in a much larger return on the interest that our checking accounts were earning. And to give you an example of what that means, we went from earning less than 1% on our funds in the bank to almost 5%. So accordingly, we've had a little bit of an increase in all of our funds, and every fund balance that was sitting in an account at the bank. Another reason for this is several of these projects, grant projects, i.e. Owen Field, the Elbow Trail project, those 2 projects in particular were budgeted out of fund balance and have not been spent. And in their entirety. So the Elbow Trail grant at this time is still waiting on the cultural resource study. And until we get approval from that, there are funds that are included in the general fund balance that haven't been spent. Owen Field, just to give you some expansion on that, reminder, we had $1 million of matching, and it comes out of the CIP. Okay, so that CIP fund is not tied to the general fund. That is totally separate capital projects. CIP number 2 funds, at this time, $700,000 in additional expansion at Owen Field. So far, the one bid package is about $500,000 and some change. So the dirt work that you see going on out there now, clearing and grubbing, storm sewer installation, all of that is a part of that first bid package, which I believe was $562. Stabilization funds, these are our rainy day funds, which by order of the council, whether it be ordinance or resolution, are to have a minimum balance of $1 million. So we were able to get there in fiscal year 23, and we budgeted for, in fiscal year 24, a dedicated increase because we had such a large fund balance. So we said, okay, we're going to take $50,000 from the current year budget, and we're going to put it into the general fund stabilization fund. So we did that, and then the difference that you see between the 1464 number and the 1331 is the interest that account is gaining. Same thing with the GPWA. We budgeted $1,022,000, and we're at $1,053,000. Okay. So what you see for our proposed budget, the general fund balance is approximately $2.3 million, which is about $140,000 less than what we budgeted for in this year. And then the GPWA is approximately $1.8 million, which is, again, approximately $130,000 greater than what we had budgeted the current year. Stabilization fund, what we've budgeted for here in terms of growth is simply the interest on which the accounts are growing. We're not making any dedicated transfers this upcoming year because of the decrease in sales tax collections. Okay? Overall difference, approximately 4.5% or $295,666 over what we estimate to end the current year with. Fiscal year 24-25 projected revenues. So the general fund, the GPWA, this is a little different than what you see in your packet. I broke this down to show you row by row, what is the actual sales tax collection? What is the CIP sales tax collection? What's our use tax revenue? And then what all other or transfers equal out to be. Now, you can look at the budget and you can say, Eddie, it's actually $16 million. Well, that's a transfer that shows the sales tax. When we receive the sales tax in, we transfer it to GPWA, and then we transfer it back to the general fund. Okay? So this is a true picture of the funds that we actually have to spend. It's not a number that is reflective of your budget. So what we've proposed, again, to go back to fiscal year 24, we accounted for 1% of growth in sales tax revenue. So fiscal year 23 actual was 6.9, and we had it at just over $7 million. We estimate we're going to come in year end at 6.8. We've kept it flat for fiscal year 25. It could be better. It could be worse. I've had other cities, other communities who were on a July 1, June 30 fiscal year reach out and say that in July they were down 2%. So I don't know what's on the horizon with sales tax. I think you're going to see, at a minimum, it's going to stabilize. At a minimum. And that's what we've accounted for in this budget that we've presented to you. The CIP sales tax revenue, we've kept it flat as well. Keep in mind the note we've got on CIP number 2 is assuming that we're generating a minimum of $1.1 million annually. So we have just over $600,000 in CIP sales tax revenue that is going to be unrestricted, okay? Not to say that it isn't going towards some other debt obligation, i.e. the wastewater treatment plant or the original water treatment plant note, the $3 million note that kick-started CIP number 1 projects. Use tax revenue, this is the sales tax collected on online sales. We estimated in our budget to be at 1.19, and we're actually assuming that everything remains the same. We will end the year at 1.322, but it's still not enough to supplement the difference or the deficit in sales tax, okay? So what we've done in the 25 proposed budget is we've taken that number from the 1199, so the almost $1.2 million. We've cut that back to what our 23 actual collections were. Even though the 24 budget was less than, we feel comfortable because the 24 actual is 1.3. So we've cut it by over $100,000. Others and transfers, this is a variety of different fees or transfers between the GPWA that supplements, or any of the authorities, for example, that supplement general fund expenditures. For example, we have employees in finance office as well as my administrative assistant, who their salaries are supplemented by the authority for the portion of work that they do that ties back to the authority. Total revenues in the GPWA, again, we have been across every category here, we have deducted, and we've tried to be conservative and remain conservative in our approach. And so the 24 budget was 7.7. We're going to end the year at 8.3 for a variety of reasons. Again, this ties to sanitation collections, it ties to water purchases. For example, Langston University has been using more water than their historical average. So that's been to our benefit. Their purchase has been greater than what we had planned on. So all in all, the 2 major funds, we have an increase that is less than 1%. And it's not from a source that we're counting on in terms of sales tax revenue, CIP. We're not counting on any source that has shown us a decline in the past year. Does that make sense? So whether it's sanitation revenues or water purchases, those are the things we're counting on for increases. Okay? Any questions about that so far? Great. Projected expenses. This is wholly inclusive of the transfer between the 2 departments. So these numbers match what's in your packet, okay? So fiscal year 24 budget, we estimated $21 million in the general fund, $16 million in the Public Works Authority, for a total of $37.9 million between the 2 funds. We're going to estimate the year, we estimate to end the year at 37.3, so we're down 1.4%. Nearly $100,000 of that is directly tied to sales tax. So, fiscal year 25 proposed general fund expenditures are 21.4 and 16.357, which brings you to a total of 37,827. Okay. Again, what you see here is after we've plugged in revenues from fund balance and any transfers between departments. So you say, Eddie, that's actually an increase. Well, it may be, but it might be tied to a one-time purchase. And I'll talk about those capital purchases here in just a moment. 24-25 grant match. This is the slide that has given Kim and I the Sunday scaries and possible heart attacks. We're still here though.
You're still
So we've got some great projects going on. We've submitted for several projects which have all come due at the same time. When this happens, and when you see that fund balance number decrease, we need to know and be prepared that we knew this was coming even long before I was even here. This is the result of our city match to any federal or state grant applications that we have been successful in. So as a refresher, the Owen Field Land Water Conservation Fund project, the grant was $1 million, and the city match is now $1.7 million. So that's a total amount of $2.7 million. Over here on the right, I've got a comment about how each of these is funded. So $1 million out of that 1.7 is funded by CIP number 1 at Owen Field. $700,000 is funded by CIP number 2, cash. Okay. The RTP Elbow Trail, the grant was $300,000, the city's match was $175,000 for a total amount of $475,000, and the fund for that is general fund balance. Colorado School Lift Station project, as you'll recall, this is a retrofit of the existing lift station. Ties in conjunction with the construction of the new elementary school. The grant, what we're showing the grant here is the match from Guthrie Public Schools. So GPS has contributed $100,000 to the replacement of this sanitary sewer lift station. Our cost at this time is $221,062.50. It's a total project for $321,000, and it is funded via the CMOM fee, which you see on your utility bills. Yes, the Safe Streets for All planning grant. That grant was $200,000. The city's match was $50,000 for a total of $250,000. That is funded with street CIP funds. As you'll recall, we awarded that contract to Kimley Horn, which is in connection with the ACOG regional master plan for this item. College Avenue Bridge, the grant amount, this could change. So the grant amount on College Avenue Bridge, the airport terminal, taxiway realignment, and the land acquisition all come with the caveat that depending on which federal fiscal year they are tied to, grant match could be 10%, could be 5%, and when we talk about airport grants, it could be 2.5% because of our match with the city of Edmond, and it could also be half of 2.5%. Think about that one for a minute. It will set in as we go through this conversation. So the College Avenue Bridge, the city match is $480,000. The grant is $1.5 million to bring us to a little over $2 million in a total project amount, and that is funded via the street CIP funds. Airport terminal, this is $6 million total project. $600,000 is the city's match, so $300,000 for City of Guthrie, $300,000 City of Edmond. And this is assuming that we end up required to pay 10%. We have not shown this deducted from your fund balance, because at this point, we don't know what the match is going to be. And there's also an opportunity that the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics could match our contribution depending on which funding source we end up being applicable for through the state. So a lot of moving pieces. And that's why Kim and I have not proposed that we deduct fund balance amount at this time, because we don't know what it's going to be. As we know what it is, we'll come back to you with a budget amendment in order to move forward with those projects. Yes, sir.
Is the 10% the highest?
The 10% is the highest. Okay. Realistically, we feel comfortable that it's going to be 5%, but until we have that in writing in a grant project document, I don't want to assume anything. So, taxiway realignment project, that's a big project out of the airport. I'm sorry, taxiway realignment. That is a big project out of the airport as well. Total project amount, $6.4 million, $331,500 general fund balance, $331,500 City of Edmond. That grant amount would be $5.8 million. Great project. Big project. We still don't know on this one either. Is it going to be 10%? Is it 5%? Is it 2.5%? We've asked for clarification. We haven't gotten it yet. So still working on it. Land acquisition out the airport. This is some land that is directly south of the proposed terminal. This would tie into not only the taxiway realignment, but also future taxi lane development for future hangar development, all of which are future grant applications. Real general and brief overview of where we're at. We've got $13.6 million of grant funds with $3.9 million of city funds. So we're getting almost $16 million in projects for approximately $3.9 million in city funds. That's a big deal. There's not many cities out there that can say that they have this type of momentum in their community. And that is a direct testament to the city council and the staff, former council members. A lot of these projects have been in the works for many years. So it is truly a team effort. It's not any one person, but that is a big deal. It is huge for this community. Any questions on the grant match? Anything I can clarify or help understand? Ready? Okay. A couple of additional notes here before we wrap it up. Sales tax collections are approximately 1% lower than what we budgeted. Shared that with you. Your fiscal year 25 sales tax has been deducted by the deficit of the current year collections. Fiscal year 25 use tax has been deducted by the deficit and reverted back to the 23 actual collections. Okay. Revenues for the upcoming year have been forecasted with a deduction in mind. So we've deducted that 2%, not just the 1%. 1% plus whatever we have to supplement to get to the next year, because that's a true picture. We can't just say 1% because we had to make up that 1% to get through the current budget. Fiscal year 25 versus fiscal year 24 wages and benefits. What we'll propose to you later this evening and what we've discussed previously is a 2% cost of living adjustment for non-union employees, 2.5% to 5% merit raises for non-union employees depending on their supervisor and their annual evaluation. We're currently estimating a 20% increase in health insurance premiums. We're told that's a safe number. We've seen across the board an increase in claims. And as a result of that, our premiums are going up. Fiscal year 24-25 collective bargaining agreement negotiations are ongoing. I am not confident that we will have an agreement with either union before the end of the year. So we will have to come back with a budget amendment to supplement or fix whatever the difference is from the proposed budget to what's required to supplement the result of negotiations. Capital purchases and new positions. So one spare pump for the Cottonwood Creek pump station is funded in this budget, $30,371. If you'll recall, when I arrived on scene last year, one of the first things we did was came to you and said, we need to buy an extra pump. We've got 2 pumps at the Cottonwood. They were both out of commission. We weren't pumping any water, and we were in the middle of a drought. We got that other pump. It's in. We've got it. We need to get a second one. There's no reason we shouldn't have both of those pumps a backup, and we've got the fund balance to do it for $30,000. Because if we're not pumping water, we're not in the water business. And that's the reality. One new zero-turn mower is funded in this budget for the Parks Department, $16,000. One police vehicle is funded in this budget. That breaks down to the patrol unit of $55,000 and $20,000 to upfit. That is a decrease from current year. So this year we bought 2 units, one for animal control and one for patrol, and we allow $25,000 to upfit. Chief Swagger and I have agreed that this year he will have $20,000 to upfit the unit. No new bargaining positions have been added or proposed in the budget. There are 2 non-bargaining positions that have been proposed, and they have funding mechanisms. So we've got one new communications officer, which is going to be funded via the E911 fees. And then we've got the new IT specialist position, which has been funded via the cybersecurity grant. So both of those positions are funded and have already guaranteed mechanisms that justify having those. We do continue to explore possible succession planning in all departments, as well as funding solutions to implement those possible plans. If you'll recall, one of the conversations we started having early was we need to have a succession plan. There needs to be a backup plan. Heaven forbid something happened to me today, tomorrow. Who's in charge? That's not fair to you, and that's not fair to the staff. On the flip side of that, in every department we need to have a backup plan. We've got good leadership in all of our departments. I don't worry about anything like that. However, somebody needs to be cross-trained, and in the event that somebody's not here, we can continue business as usual. My departure shouldn't have any impact on the staff. And your staff is well-versed. They're a well-oiled machine. We complement each other. They help me every day, I help them every day. But whether I'm here or not, they need to know who's in charge, and you should know too. So we continue to explore that. I don't want this city to ever be in a position, or any of us to ever be in a position where we're held by a person or a time frame of some kind. We need to have that on the front. It's a lot of information in exactly 30 minutes.
I do have a question regarding the airport funds. How comfortable are we with the ODAA's position regarding our likely funding sources for that? I've had conversations with Commissioner Putnam, and he's fairly excited about our.
So we had visited with Executive Director Grayson Arias, as well as Nick Young, the airport managers. We feel confident that the ODAA is going to support these projects to the best of their ability. And the ODAA has been a great help to not only the staff, but also along the process of getting these federal grants. So I feel confident they're going to come through for us. Until we know what the FAA is going to assign, what budget year the FAA is going to assign these projects to, the ODAA doesn't know what their match needs to be. So until we get that, we really don't have an answer for you, but I feel firm that we have good support at the state level.
And we've gotten congressional support for the terminal and the taxiway. Is that correct? That has.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, the police purchase vehicles. Refresh my memory, we try to do 2 a year,
Yes, sir.
and it was 2 years ago, we actually bought 3 because they were hard to get and there was one available. That
That's
was
right.
before you came. So it was 2 years ago they had 3, and
That's right. So in fiscal year
I mean,
22,
I'm not trying to say you don't need them, and you already put a lot of miles on that third one, obviously, but
so in fiscal year 22, the council approved the 3 new Tahoes, which arrived in April of 23 whenever I got here.
okay, yeah.
Those 3 units are in service and they are being used. One of the first things when we sat down and looked at the budget last year when I got here, again, in terms of succession planning, we need to have a rotation plan and a retirement plan for our fleet. That way we're not buying 10 Tahoes at one time. It's not a good expenditure and it's not a good look, frankly. So what we've done in fiscal year 24, and actually we bought 3 units because one of those was funded via the grant, the Victim Advocate Grant. So we've got 3 units. We ordered those 3 units last October, and we've got 1. One of them has come in. And we had a conversation today, where's the new police interceptor vehicle? It's not here yet, and we don't know when. We've had the same problem with the fire department. You know, you recall, we ordered an ambulance September, October last year? October? October of last year, we still don't even have a build date.
Wow.
We've also had that with a brush truck as well. So, and that was October, November. It was right after. And the fire apparatus, that purchase was supported by the county fire tax. It's ready to go. We're ready to pay for it. We just can't get it. So our fear, if we were to not purchase any police vehicles, with the lead times we're already seeing, if we're going to be a year, maybe 2 years out the whole time, we can't wait. We can't wait 3 years to buy a vehicle. We plan on ordering it this year. We may not get it till next year. We may have to pay for it next year. So in a sense, we could possibly save money and stack them, but our plan is at least buy one.
Are there any other questions?
I do want to thank the staff. Again, they've worked really hard. All employees have been understanding of the financial position that we are in, and they know and they accept the reality about the sales tax collections and the fact that, hey, we've had some really good months. May's collection that we received in July was up 5%. We were still down a year for 1% for the year. And so it's great to look at those one-offs and say, hey, sales tax looks great. But when you look at the whole picture, it's really not the same. So the staff's been understanding of that, and I thank them and appreciate their time, as well as Kim for the many hours she has put into this budget.
Thank you. Going once, twice. I will adjourn our special city council meeting budget workshop. I'll call to order the 67th city council meeting, the regular meeting of the council for August 6th, 2024. I'll note that the quorum is present and the time is 6:41 for the record. If you all would stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I believe Pastor Richardson is here, and if I could take a moment to, the reason I am presiding as mayor or acting mayor this evening is our mayor is dealing with a very difficult family issue. His mother-in-law is critically ill. As somebody who's recently lost his mother, I am certainly sympathetic, so if you all would keep the mayor and the first lady in your thoughts and prayers this evening, I would appreciate that.
Almighty God, please watch over all of those who are ill tonight and who need your help and your comfort, and watch over all those who grieve. And in the midst of this, thank you for the opportunity to meet tonight. Uphold Guthrie's leaders and keep them safe as they strive to lead with courage and compassion. As the daylight grows shorter as we approach fall, shine light on the multitude of ways in which we can help our neighbors. Bless the students and teachers and staff as they go back to school, and may we all be mindful when driving in school zones. Amen.
Amen.
The second item on the agenda is public comments, community announcements, and recognitions. I don't think we had any citations or commendations. We do have one citizen, Mr. Is it Beckenauer? Yes. If you would like to approach and address the council, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Jerry Beckenauer. I live at 1224 East Cleveland. I've been a resident here for about 25 years at that residence. I've been here since '68. I've seen a lot of changes in this town, and I'm not seeing enough as far as our residential areas go.
Could you speak up, please?
Yeah, and
I have health problems. So
and talk
I'll
into
do
the
what I
mic
can.
if you could.
On our street, we have speeding issues that are pretty serious. We got people running 100 miles an hour up and down Cleveland Avenue. We don't have enough stop signs to break up or discourage these people from speeding. Now, the police have been doing an excellent job. Thank you so much for all your hard work. and all of your hard work. But we're falling short, folks. And I want to be able to walk my dog. And feel safe in my neighborhood. The quality of our streets on that neighborhood is not up to par. We have drainage that's draining off other properties. It's hitting the north side of our street, and it's worse than all of our properties. I come here 20 years ago with dreams of having my family here. My family's been here since the beginning of this town. My grandfather was an eye doctor here forever. He gave away third of his practice. And I can't believe that I'm seeing things like this take place where personal safety is not considered the #1 priority. I watched a young family trying to walk up Noble, and each of them had a stroller that had a baby in it. And they're having to work up those humps, and traffic's going by 45, 55, 60 miles an hour through there all day long. And the only thing I can see is what happens when one of them get hit. That's not one life, that's 2 lives. Can you see where I'm going with this? We have no place to walk safely. There's handicapped people over there, all of them down that street. I've been there over 25 years and I'm a short timer there. Elderly live there. We have housing authority. We have handicaps. There's no sidewalks on no. That's the only place we have to walk. Please do something. Would you? Can you help us out? Appreciate it.
Thank you. I didn't have anyone else sign up, so we can't address the concern. We can hear you, and the staff will look into your concerns. Okay? Item number 3 is the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion for the consent unless somebody wants any items moved from the consent agenda as published.
So moved.
There's been a motion made.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded and laid upon the table. Is there any debate? Hearing none, you may cast your vote by electronic device.
All votes are in.
Please publish the vote. Having received a majority of those appointed to and constituting the council, the motion carries. Item number 4, there were no items removed from the consent agenda. Item number 5, presentation and acceptance of fiscal year 2023 annual financial statements and independent auditor's report, Mr. Faulkner. And I believe we have a presentation by Zoom from the auditor that will be broadcast into the chamber. If we could proceed with that, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Honorable Acting Mayor and members of the City Council, I'm pleased to present our reports regarding your financial statement, our audit of your financial statements for the year ended September 30th, 2023. We included, in our audit, we included the entities of the City of Guthrie and the blended component units of the City of Guthrie Public Works Authority and the City of Guthrie Industrial Development Authority. We did not include 2 inactive authorities, the Guthrie Public Transportation Authority and the Guthrie Transportation Authority. Just to delineate the responsibilities of management and your financial staff versus the auditor. Management is responsible for preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This includes the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. Our objectives as your auditors are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinions. We conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than for one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omissions, misrepresentations, or the override of internal control. Misstatements are considered material if there is a substantial likelihood that individually or in the aggregate, they would influence the judgment made by a reasonable user based on the financial statements. In performing an audit under the standards mentioned, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We identify and assess the risks of material misstatement of the financial statements, whether due to fraud or error, and design and perform audit procedures responsive to those risks. We have identified some of the risks associated with the municipal audit in our engagement letter that we gave you. We obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate, but not for purposes of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the city's internal control. Accordingly, no such opinion is expressed. We also evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies that have been applied and the reasonableness of significant accounting estimates made by management, as well as evaluate the overall presentation of the financial statements. We are required to communicate with those charged with governance regarding, among other matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit, significant audit findings, and certain internal control related matters that we identified during the audit. We had 5 opinion units. The one was governmental activities, which is basically a presentation of the, it's derived from the governmental fund financial statements, but it is on an accrual basis of accounting and economic resources measurement focus. Basically includes the adjustments for capital assets, pension liabilities, and other liabilities, debt liabilities. The fund financial information is on a modified accrual basis. Business type activities are essentially the same, just presented a little bit differently in the government-wide financial statements versus the fund financial statements, but the measurement focus is the same. So we had governmental activities, business type activities was a second opinion unit, and then each major fund, which is the general fund and the Guthrie Public Works Authority Fund. And then we had a 5th opinion unit, which was the aggregate remaining fund information. So the non-major funds aggregated together. In our opinion, all 5 opinion units were fairly stated in keeping with accounting principles generally accepted in the U.S. In other words, U.S. GAAP. There was a change in the financial statement presentation from the prior year in that the city elected to implement GASB 96, which was subscription-based information technology arrangements, which resulted in the recognition of an initial subscription liability related to a 60-month contract related to police body cameras in the amount of $138,782, with an offset of a right-to-use asset of $192,350, and reduced by accumulated amortization of $38,470. There were no other changes in the financial statement presentation. Significant estimates include management's estimate of useful life of capital assets, which is based on historical experience as well as practices in place by similar entities. And second significant estimate is the valuation of the net pension liability or asset, as the case may be, and other post-employment benefits and related deferrals, which involve significant estimates and assumptions. In both cases, we evaluated the key factors and assumptions used to develop the estimates, and that they are reasonable in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. So that is the first report, or my report over the first report, that we had 3 reports altogether in this audit. The second one is a report that's required by government auditing standards. And in accordance with those standards, we have also issued our report on our consideration of the city's internal control over financial reporting and our test of its compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements and other matters. The purpose of that report is to describe the scope of our testing and not to issue an opinion. The results of our testing disclose no deficiencies that were considered to be material to the financial statements or otherwise required to be reported as a finding. However, when we identify opportunities for improvement in areas we have selected for testing, we may communicate them to management either orally or in writing. So both of these reports are clean reports. Because the city had more than $750,000 in expenditures of federal grant awards, a single audit was required under the uniform guidance. We identified one major program that had actually 3 separate grant agreements that were passed through the Oklahoma Department of Commerce and had total combined expenditures in the fiscal year of $959,741. 2 of the agreements were for water line improvements, and the third was for window and HVAC improvements. And once again, we had no findings associated with our testing of these transactions. Financial highlights for your financial statements. For the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2023, the city's total net position, at the government-wide level, increased by $4.4 million or 11.1% from the prior year. Increases in both the governmental and business type activities were reported. At September 30th, 2023, the general fund reported an unassigned fund balance of $4.3 million, or approximately 126 days of expenditures. Expenditures in every functional area in the general fund were below appropriations, and that's final appropriations, indicating good budgetary control. Capital asset additions exceeded depreciation by approximately $4.8 million, which means the city is continuing to expand the assets that are being utilized for citizens, service to citizens. The debt issued in the current year, there were additional draws on your Clean Water State Revolving Fund promissory notes, the 2022 and the 2021. The 2021 one had an additional $3.2 million approximately drawn. It's fully advanced now. And the 2022 had about 1.9 million advanced, and it has a little over 2 million still left to go. There was also a capital lease issued to F&M Bank for a jet sewer truck in approximately $400,000. For your pension plans, your measurement date for the pension plans was June 30th, 2023, and those financial statements take a while to get issued, and consequently delay the issuing your city's audited financial statements. However, just an overview of that activity, the OMRF, which is your administrative pension plan, was funded 103.39%, which is an increase of the prior year's 96.43%. In the prior year before that, it was over 100% again. So that plan is well funded. And so when you're funded more than 100%, in the financial statements, you're reporting a net pension asset and not a liability. And your police fund was funded at 101.02%. Again, a little tiny amount overfunded. It's a decrease from prior year's 102.74%. However, there are lots of estimates, as we discussed before. And so, that's basically essentially a fully funded plan, once again, showing a net pension asset. The city's cost share as a share of the total state actually decreased a little bit from about 0.47% to about 4%. The fire pension plan also decreased as a cost share of the total state plan from about 0.53% to about 0.56. So, when I'm saying that, it's like a 0.5%, right around in that neighborhood on the plans, just to put that in perspective. The fire pension plan funding level increased slightly from the prior year at 70.85% versus the prior year's 69.49%. So there is a small net pension liability that was recorded there. So that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
Council? I had one question. How many years has your firm been retained as the auditor for the city of Guthrie?
This is our third year.
Okay.
It's my understanding.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the FY 2023 annual financial statements and independent auditors report.
So moved.
There's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion made, second, and laid upon the table. Is there any other discussion? Hearing no further discussion, you may cast your vote by electronic device.
All votes are in.
Please post the vote. Having received a majority of those elected to constituting the council, the item passes. Item number 6, request to close the right-of-way on Pulse Drive. Mr. Kasich.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, City Council. This is a request to close a 33-foot by 558 portion of Pulse Drive. Pulse Drive is located off of South Division, and it goes east off of Division. It's directly south of the airport property. There's two developed properties that are along there. The applicant was actually one of those property owners. The city owns a portion of property that's to the west of this dedicated right-of-way. There were no objections from any of the utilities. There's no water sewer there. It's just gas and electric currently. And the Planning Commission had recommended 4-0 to approve closure of the right-of-way. So with that, I'll give it back to council. The applicant is here if you have any questions of him.
My only question would be, would this have any impact on airport development?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Same thing.
None that, well, I mean, if you want to go ahead.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I think the short answer is we have access to property that we own, that we previously purchased from the applicant off of Pulse Drive, whether this right-of-way exists or not. If we were to try and utilize Pulse all the way east to the airport, this would affect that, because that would no longer be an option. So
So if we wanted to have another, for example, another entrance into the airport off of Pulse, I can't foresee why we would want to do that. But
we could, excuse me, if we wanted to do that, we could enter off of Pulse and then come into the property we acquired via the GEDA from Mr. Wilds, you could enter from Pulse onto that property and then come up to the terminal from there. So that option is there. We also have other opportunities in the future with land acquisition that we've discussed previously that may open up a second or third access point onto Prairie Grove.
What would be the reason or benefit to have another entry point?
Depends on the level of traffic and or increased hangar development that we see as the airport grows. With the copious amounts of funding we've received and the success we've gotten in the congressionally directed spending applications, our airport's going to change substantially over the next few years. And I think you'll see currently you've got approximately 130 based tenants. You've got 130 aircraft out there now. I think it's easy to say you'll see that number double. And subsequently the traffic will double.
So by closing this right away, it's not going to be an issue for sure, correct?
I think we could make it without the right of way. I'm not sure Pulse Drive is not fully developed anyway.
No, that's correct. And this is actually the only portion along Pulse Drive that is an actual dedicated right-of-way. The remaining portion to the west of this just still remains as an easement.
And exactly why are we closing this right away?
Primarily because the applicant was looking to utilize or fence off and put a gate in that area that currently the right-of-way exists to help secure his property better.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, is this gonna affect him? That was the main, is this gonna affect you? This will help you out, right?
Yeah, I'll speak for a moment, just to be fair, so that everybody has it. So my intentional goal is, we had a tree line on the north side of Pulse Drive that was trimmed for many years and now has been completely removed. For my acting as a resident there, I actually have a hangar at the airport, and I'm very advocate for aviation. However, I was trying to look to put some segregation back in, and to put a fence line on the north boundary of Pulse Drive. It is on the opposite side of this right-of-way, not my side of the road. So that is the reason for the request primarily, is to put up a privacy fence to not only, in my opinion, improve the look from the airport side, FBO, but as well to be able to close off the look to my houses, you know, from being out, and from passerbys or any other strange traffic that we get. We do get a lot of strange traffic on it because it is a very undeveloped road. People get lost. They drive down and they actually enter onto airport property multiple times now that they've taken that tree line out, and they end up just in the middle field between the two properties, and they have nowhere to go.
So you're going to gate it on the front end of it?
Sir, I'm going to be putting a fence, a privacy fence on the north side, which would be the south side of the airport property, north side of Pulse Drive. At the current, I don't intend to put a closure gate to stop access to the road in full. I just want the privacy sector on the north side of the property. If you do look at the, I don't know if you guys have the packet or if you want to look at it, but if you do look at the page number 190, it kind of gives you an idea to identify I would be on that north side of that right away.
But you could close it with a gate if we pass this.
I could ultimately close it with the gate if we do pass it,
Okay.
and you know, for security purposes, at some time in the future, it sure would not bother me at all to be able to close off that end, because again, we do get I've got a shop and stuff at the very end of the road that's commercialized, so I would not mind at all to put a gate there, but again, it would be a process that I would make sure that everybody's on the same page before that time came.
So I make a motion to approve.
Hold on, we can point out that that is your legal property on the north side of Pulse Road.
I'm sorry?
You own the property across the road itself. The road that exists now, that's your property line on the north side.
The property line on the north side of the road is the south boundary property line of the airport. So
Yes.
it would be a shared property line between the two.
So having watched that planning commission meeting, I didn't understand it. That's the only section of an actual right of way. And the rest is an easement.
Yep.
How did that happen?
In process of selling and the city acquiring a lot of the other property, we went through hours, and I paid for numerous amounts of abstracting to try to determine how that ever happened. No one has ever found on paper or on record that right-of-way was ever given access to besides utility easements by OG&E and utility easements to Oklahoma Natural Gas.
So we have utilities that run up the whole.
We do not, but.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no water and sewer, but there is gas and water.
Okay.
Yeah.
It happens. That would have been a godsend.
That's right, it's just it's a dead, we called it no man's land or dead
Well,
man's
the
land.
only, and I looked at that pretty good. Yeah, I don't see any problem joining our property from our side or whatever. The only thing I could see Pulse Drive, not necessarily your section being any significance would maybe be egress in a catastrophic emergency or something.
Yeah, and it's a very underdeveloped road for
Yes.
that
Yes.
purpose. The roadway itself is about 14 feet wide as gravel roadway, and that's it. There's no, it's very
It's
undeveloped.
really not a safe entry.
It's really not a great,
From
it's really not a great
division.
roadway for myself either,
Yeah.
and eventually if I can get this I want to improve the roadway, at least into the section that I have access to, without conflict with the city of Guthrie or the planning, the tinny maker.
Yeah.
Public Works.
Yes.
I knew I would get it out eventually.
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion made and seconded and laid upon the table. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, you may cast your vote by electronic device.
All votes are in.
Please post the vote. Having received a majority of those elected to constitute council, the motion passes.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. On item number 7, I would ask for unanimous consent to remove item 7 and have no action taken. Is there any objection to that? Hearing no objection, we'll move to item 8. Architectural related services agreement for Highland Park Pool. Mr. Faulkner.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, this item has been a long time coming. We've got an agreement with GH2 Architects LLC to provide certain architectural and related services to the city of Guthrie in connection with the construction of the Highland Park Pool. So if you'll recall, as part of CIP number 2, we've got approximately $1.5 to $2 million to fund a new pool and/or aquatic feature out at Highland Park. In January of 2024, the City of Guthrie put out RFQ number 2024-02, requesting responses for architectural services. In connection with that publishment, the committee reviewed and interviewed four different architecture firms, and we have come to an agreement with GH2 Architects, which has been approved by outside counsel to design and cost estimate a new pool, bathhouse, and chemical house. So there's a variety of ways to get there. This is the first step in that process. And so this is a flat fee in a total of $190,000, which is respective and/or competitive for the work that we're requesting. So staff recommends approval.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
There's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, seconded, and laid upon the table to approve the architectural-related services agreement for Highland Park Pool. If there's no further discussion, you can cast your vote by electronic device.
All votes are in.
Please post the vote. Having received a majority of those elected to and constituting the council, the motion passes. Item number 9, fiscal year 2024-2025 school resource officer agreement. Mr. Faulkner, and I also would recognize the chief on this item.
Sure. Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, this is consistent with what you've seen in the past. This is an agreement between Guthrie Public Schools and the City of Guthrie to provide school resource officers. What we did beginning in fiscal year 22 is we had an officer, one Jonathan Williams, who retired from the force and became an employee of the Guthrie Public Schools school district. And so what we did as a part of that agreement was Mr. Williams retired. He serves as a reserve officer for the City of Guthrie and works a minimum of 190 hours annually. I can tell you with great assurance that we get the better end of that deal because we have him in the summertime, on the weekends, any holidays, and I see him at almost every event the community has. So in addition to the employee retiring, and we continue to receive the benefit, as part of this agreement, we have provided the city vehicle, uniforms, et cetera. None of that has changed. Still a reserve officer. We've got two other officers, Sergeant Anthony Gibbs and Officer Ryan Friesen, who both work as SROs. This agreement is a little different. It's consistent with what we've done in the past few years, but it is different prior to that. So if you'll look at your packet and the attached spreadsheet, previously the city had 3 officers dedicated as SROs, which we still do. The Guthrie Public Schools paid 2/3 of the salary for 3 of those entry-level officers. So the intent behind this was if we wouldn't necessarily put an entry-level officer as an SRO, but we would replace an officer that we took with a higher seniority with an entry-level officer on patrol. So previously what GPS did, they would reimburse for 2/3 of their salary and benefits cost, because that's 9 months of the year, and that's when school's in session. We've changed that, and this agreement allows for the school to pay Jonathan Williams directly. We still reap the benefit, although he's not an employee, we still reap the benefit of him, and there is nothing paid to the city as a result of this agreement. However, the city picks up the difference in the insurance cost for the employee to be employed at GPS. So under the previous format, the city was paying approximately $149,347 for the school resource officers. The new agreement with us paying for the insurance offset, the city has a total cost of $141,576.85. So it's actually $8,000 less than what we were previously paying, and we have the benefit of having Jonathan Williams, or J-Dub, as some of you may know him, as a reserve officer.
I mean, 8,000 more, 8,100 more, right?
Say that one more
It's
time.
8,100 more, is it not?
It is not, because we are not paying, when Mr. Williams retired, he was a higher earning officer, had been with the department for quite some time. And so if you'll look at that spreadsheet, the city was paying total benefits out the door, $115,991.77. We're not paying that $115,000. So the difference now is we pay $66,000 2 times for 2 officers, and then $8,000 for the insurance offset. And the total of that is $141,576.85. Staff recommends approval.
Any questions?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded, laid upon the table. There's no further discussion. You may cast your vote by electronic device.
All votes right.
Please post the vote. Having received the majority of those elected to and constitute the council, the motion passes. Would it make sense to go into item 12 and reserve 10 and 11 till the end of the agenda?
We could do that, sir. Typically, that's how I would have preferred to do it. However, City Clerk, Ms. Biggs has informed me that when there are folks who are watching on Channel 20, if they want to tune out during the executive session, they like to hear the city manager's report first.
Okay, all right. Item number 10, city manager's report.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council, it has been a busy 3 weeks since we last saw you. So just to give you a quick update on things, Vice Mayor Aguirre, Mayor Gentling, and Councilmember Ropp attended a kickoff meeting with Retail Strategies. Say we had a productive meeting. Look forward to their success. So we spent the afternoon with them indexing available properties in the city, exploring some possible recruits, and looking at demographics and essentially data gathering, and preparing to present a brochure and go out and retract new retail development. So look forward to that. You should have received my news release yesterday regarding the CRISA grant. That is a paving project that will take place in various areas of the city, mostly in front of the junior high and then east of the temple there along Oklahoma. That project is funded via the CRISA grant, which was applied for in 2022. Staff had worked on that through ACOG. We actually received full funding, and so we had submitted an 80/20 grant, and we received full funding. So, and then the bids came in under budget. It was almost a perfect storm. So we're excited to see that project happen. Full details and a map of what's actually taking place in terms of mill and overlay are available on our social media, and you should have it in your email inbox as well. Public Works crews have been busy with water main breaks and pump failures. If you've noticed on our social media, we had a water main break over on the west side over the weekend, and last weekend. And then we had a failure at our west side booster pump station yesterday. Again, we cannot echo enough that we continue to explore every grant, every grant and funding mechanism possible to replace the infrastructure. What we're seeing as we continue to have these really hot days, these pumps are running in the 110-degree heat, and they're truly just not designed for that. They can handle it, but they can only handle it for so long, and we're starting to see that. We see the age on our infrastructure daily, and so I want to give a shout out to the Public Works team. Thank you, Tenny and James, everybody out there. I know you guys are working hard, and we certainly appreciate that. Well, water tower bid opening to sandblast and repaint both water towers will take place tomorrow at 1 p.m. in the council chambers. Looking forward to that. That is one of our first initiatives on CIP number 2. So we should have something ready for you at the next council meeting to award the bid and proceed with the contract. So that'll be great for the community. Look forward to that. Owen Field dirt work is ongoing, expected to be completed, contractually obligated to be completed by October 8th. So continuation of design. We feel we're at a 99% plan in hand at this time. So what we're going to look for is an advertisement for bid to continue the development out at Owen Field and hopefully award bids for construction September or October timeline. So moving right along on that project, although it may not feel like it, there is lots going on out at Owen Field. With the lack of the rain, Guthrie Lake is currently 91 inches below the spillway, and that has been our main water source for quite some time. So we have been pumping into Liberty Lake, which is currently 44 inches below, and we will be transitioning back to Liberty as our primary source here pretty soon. Received a drought report from ACOG first of last week. The Garber-Wellington Aquifer, which we as a city, as an authority, do not have any water wells that we use for our water source. The Garber-Wellington Aquifer is an aquifer that serves this area, has not had any recharge like we received in July of 2023. And so what that tells us, as in addition to knowing the fact that it hasn't been raining, the aquifer is struggling as well. So when you drive out to the lake and you see that the water is lower, it's not just the surface water we're experiencing that in, it's also in the aquifer. So we will be transitioning to Liberty Lake soon. After 22 years of service to the city of Guthrie, Guthrie Public Works Authority, Carrie Dawn Lewis will be retiring. If you know KD, he's always a pleasure to be around. Very excited. He's just got a good energy about him. So we'll be celebrating his retirement this Friday at 11:30 at Public Works. We encourage you to come out and join us in celebrating him. Last Saturday we had another successful Red Brick Nights. It was a little bit warm, and we saw a decrease in attendance from July, which is normal because July is so busy, and the fireworks, and July is really a high note for us. August was down, but we expect September attendance to be back up. Wings of Hope donated a butterfly statue, which was unveiled, and the ribbon was cut on today at the Guthrie Public Library. So if you haven't had a chance to see that, it is in the southeast corner there near Division. A few upcoming events, and then I will conclude. The summer flight camp at the airport will take place Friday, August 9th and Saturday, August 10th. 9 to 3 on Friday and 9 to 11:30 on Saturday. It's my understanding we still have a couple of open spaces, so if you know anybody who would like to come out, it's a great program, and we always hear from the folks who participate, we always hear good things about the airport, and it really helps us educate folks about the airport. So, downtown farmers market this Friday at the shops from 6 to 8:30, and then on Saturday, August 10th, the Chamber of Commerce will be hosting the Back to School Bash at Community Church from 9 to 2. With that, Vice Mayor, that is all I have.
Thank you. Request comments from the city council. Councilman Guthrie.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. Councilman Williams.
No, sir.
Councilman
Nothing at this time.
Councilman Taylor.
Thank you, staff. I know I always do that, but I appreciate you guys. Y'all really work hard. I think this is great how things are all lined up. Other than that, that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Rob.
None at this time, thank you.
And I don't have anything, so item number 12 is to enter into an executive session pursuant to Title 25 of the Oklahoma Statute, Section 307, for the following discussion. Section 307B2 for the purpose of discussing non-bargaining employee pay plan. Section 307B2 for the purpose of discussing negotiations concerning employees and representatives of the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 105. And Section 307B2 for the purpose of discussing negotiations concerning employees and representatives of the International Association of Firefighters, IAFF, Local 2145. Is there a motion? There's been a motion made, second, and laid upon the table. Please cast your vote by electronic device.
All votes no.
Post the vote. Having received a majority of those elected to constitute the council, we stand in recess for an executive session. We'll return from executive session. No action was taken in executive session. I would entertain a motion to reconvene the city council meeting.
So moved.
There's been a motion made, second, and laid upon the table. Please cast your vote.
All votes no.
Having received the majority of those elected to constitute the council, we are reconvened from executive session. I will entertain a motion regarding items A, B, and C on number 12. I believe that the motion should be that we will approve the non-bargaining employee pay plan as presented, and regarding items B and C, we direct staff to continue to negotiate. Is that correct?
Go ahead, Randall.
Good.
Yeah, I would vote those on separate.
Okay, so motion on number 1 to approve the non-bargaining employee pay plan as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion
Vice
made,
Mayor.
seconded, yes.
We need to take that vote on item 14, which is the resolution approving the pay plan. If we can, I think voting to come out of executive session was sufficient for item 12 and 13.
Okay,
And if we can get to 14 with that same motion and second. Item 14 is the resolution for that non-bargaining pay plan. And then I've taken your guidance on items A, B, and C, or B and C.
okay. So item number 14, resolution 2024-15, fiscal year 2025, non-bargaining employee pay plan. Motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion made, seconded, and laid upon the table. Any further discussion? Cast your vote.
All votes right.
Having received a majority of those elected to and constitute the council, the motion passes. Item number 15 is the acceptance of the resignation of Jim Case, Ward 1 council member, and discussion and possible action on the process to fill the vacant position for the balance of his current term expiring May of 2025. Mr. Faulkner.
Yes, Vice Mayor and Council. Historically, what has happened, which I believe is also the process that was followed to appoint Vice Mayor Guthrie, is the council selected 3 members at a random draw to serve on a committee to review and interview applicants who were interested in the seat. The committee then made a recommendation to the full city council. The full city council was provided a copy of each application for the applicants that were interested. They were provided the recommendation of the committee, and then the council as a whole took a vote, and subsequently the vote was the recommendation of the committee. There are multiple different ways to do this. We could continue with that past practice. We could open an application period, set a special meeting of the city council to interview or have a conversation with the applicants in an open session as a workshop of the city council. Or we could set up a variety of interviews based on whatever the wish is of the city council via council members, either individually or here in a public forum during a regular meeting as an agenda item in front of the entirety of the council. So the charter qualifications for the vacancy in the office, just as a reminder, must be a citizen of the United States of America and the state of Oklahoma, must be 21 years of age or older, must be a registered voter, must be a resident of the city of Guthrie for 2 years immediately preceding the date of the last general election, and must be a resident of Ward 1. In addition to that, Charter Section 2-12, filling vacancies in office. If a vacancy occurs in the office of councilman, the council shall select, by an affirmative vote of at least 4 members, an eligible person to fill the vacancy at the next regular meeting of the city council following the creation of the vacancy or as soon as thereafter as is practical. So if you were to open the application period, open the application period tonight, set a process, whether that be a committee or a workshop date, hypothetically, you could appoint a person at your next regular meeting of the council. Now, that timeline is flexible depending upon the needs of the council. So,
How many days are you gonna have this open for?
the city council will determine the date range that the application period is open.
Okay.
I like the idea of the period in front of the council. What do you think, Vice Mayor?
Like right here?
Yeah.
I do too. I think that's what we should do with everybody and make a decision right at that point. And give maybe a week for applications.
Yeah.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
if we were to go that route, what would the question and answer process look like for the applicants? Would we want to provide a list of questions to the candidates at the time of application and request those be turned in when they submit? Would we like to ask them questions at the podium, just, with no preparation? Because it is an open meeting, if there's more than one applicant or candidate, every subsequent applicant will get to hear what the first candidate, was asked or said. So I know in visiting with the mayor, those were some of his concerns. Staff gets back.
So put out the questions beforehand is what you're saying, would kind of even that out.
Sure. I believe the mayor's, if the mayor were here, and I'm certainly not speaking for him, but I believe his intent was to seek 1 to 2 questions from each council member and then create, a list of questions to provide to the applicant and have the applicant submit those written responses at the time that they submit their application. Mr. Vice Mayor, you can elaborate further if I've botched that.
There was a wide-ranging discussion with the mayor that involved about 15 different scenarios. I don't know that we actually landed on any one of them as being an ideal situation. Given my concerns regarding the Open Meeting Act, but I think that, my personal opinion would be that we ask them for a resume, we give them a list of questions, and then we make a decision based on the written record, that would be the most fair, it seems to me. That way, nobody's hearing what other people have said.
And that's a way to do it. But let me ask we've all applied for jobs in our lives, obviously. Have you ever been given a list of questions prior to your interview? I'm just out of, okay,
No.
nor have I.
No.
So with that being said, what would be wrong with, let's say we had one candidate, it's not an issue. Let's say we had 5, then it becomes an issue. What is wrong with taking 4 of those candidates and putting them in the conference room with some snacks and coffee and that type stuff while we bring a candidate down here one at a time?
Yeah.
It's an open meeting, you can't,
You can't do that?
No.
well, you can ask them
Well,
not
I mean,
to come in, but you can't require them not to.
Right.
And it's on TV, so they could watch if they were.
What is your opinion of that, Randall? How would you do it?
Well, I'm not the one that makes that decision. I like the idea of them just filing an application, a resume. You all can look at those, and then if you want to interview somebody, you can, either by committee or have them show up here. I don't like that. Personally, I don't like the idea of them showing up if there's 4 or 5 people.
We've always done it by committee in the past.
Well, we've done it, we've all done it by committee, and that's the way Edmund has done it. But it's kind of like when you do a city manager, you get the applications in, you review them, and you cull them, and then from that point, then you figure out what you want to do. Because there may be 5 applicants, but there may only be 1 or 2 you're gonna really seriously consider.
Exactly. Well,
And so there's no reason to bring 5 people in here, if that's.
so out of the ones that we were going to interview, maybe that's what we do is give them a list of questions, and doesn't mean everybody has to be interviewed, right?
No, I mean, I think you could, unless all 5 of them are
Candidates.
special candidates, and you would take it all 5, but that's highly unlikely. I mean,
You're saying interview them in private or interview them out here?
well, if you do what Brian just said, you wouldn't interview them at all out here. You'd give them questions, they'd answer those questions, and based on their resume and their answers to those questions,
You just
hire them,
go from there.
unless you needed something else.
But you'd shorten the list. If there was 5, you'd maybe only be interviewing 2 or 3 of them.
I don't know how you do that without some kind of vote.
I don't know either.
And that, I think you're running really close to the line
I do too.
of an open meeting.
No,
but
I mean, I'm always concerned about open meetings. I agree, that's a problem, but that's kind of why
I think, I mean, for me, the fairest way would be to say, provide us a resume, and here are some additional questions that we would like you to answer in essay form, and then all of us review those individually, and then have someone make a motion to, appoint whoever is their top candidate, and we go from there. I mean, that's the way I would do it in order to avoid any appearances of impropriety or running afoul of the Open Meeting Act. That's just me.
You feel like
Right.
it does that if they speak up here, correct?
No, I don't think that, I don't think that presents a problem if you interview all 5 of them up here. I think it presents a problem in terms of a fairness, because the first one says,
Oh.
and then the last one
I
has
got you.
heard what the first one
Well,
says.
But
I see.
in that, with respect to that, when all of us have run campaigns, and we've all participated, well, maybe not all, but I have, and I know others have, participated in the candidate forums, and they were open,
Right.
and they were televised, and they were at this shoe right here, for the
Right.
most part.
Yeah, I agree.
And you were asked questions, and you were expected to answer.
Yep.
Okay, and you were expected to answer so that the public
Can see,
would kind of
right.
could see and kind of know what you stand for and who you are. So I don't have a problem interviewing publicly if that's what we're going to do. I kind of have an
don't
issue
either.
giving them loaded questions on the front end, but I could bend on that one if that's what you guys want to do.
I mean, I don't have a problem. I think the mayor had a lot of heartburn with interviewing people publicly. I don't know why. I'm not gonna pretend to know his motivation. My personal opinion is that the more public involvement you have, the better government. I mean, that's my opinion.
So let's try it publicly.
I like that because it
Let's
makes
do
it feel like the public is a part of the process and it's not a completely behind closed doors thing. They get to see the answers. So that's why I like the public.
Well, so for the sake of it, somebody could make a motion to interview them, to put out an application for a 7-day time period and to interview the applicants publicly in a meeting that is scheduled right after that. It'd be a special meeting. And then because the goal would be to, on our next regular council, would be to hire and swear that person in. And we stick with the charter that way. So I make a motion to do just that.
Okay, so let's, I think we need actually
I wanna
maybe
throw
two
something in
motions
there.
here. One is to accept the resignation of Councilman Case.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to accept?
So
the
moved.
There's been a motion made. Is there a
Second.
second? There's been a motion made, second, and laid upon the table. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, you may cast your vote by electronic device.
All votes are in.
Please post the vote. Having received a majority of those elected to and constituting the council, we have accepted Jim Case's resignation as Ward 1 City Council member. I will entertain a motion on filling the vacancy of the balance of the Ward 1 council term current until May 2025.
Jeff
I
has
got
something
a
to say.
question I want to ask.
Okay.
Guys, I know we're talking about saying it's a week, but when you run for office, you got 3 days to sign up,
3 days to file.
file. I think that's what it ought to be on this as well. You're telling them you're going to accept 5 days. Why not just accept 3 and just say you start tomorrow? You got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Well, it has to be put out there, though. I don't know if everybody knows that this is what's happened. The
Well,
people
most
that
of
are somewhat
most people in this
engaged
town,
in it.
everybody should pretty well know what's happening.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that completely, but,
I think what you're proposing sounds good. I think the difference between a regular election is that it's been established that it's every this time, and that's why you only get 3 days. But this is something different, and not everybody's paying attention as well, I don't think. But that's just.
so I'm gonna make a motion that can be adjusted if
Thank
we want to adjust it, but I'm gonna make a motion that we put out an application process, the city does for a 7-day time frame, and then we hold a special meeting on the 8th day or 9th day, whichever we could do. And at that point, we interview the people, the candidates, right here in this room, and we make a decision at that point.
That doesn't give you much time to review. So what if you made the motion that we have an application period for 7 days, and then we had a special workshop like we did for the budget on the 20th, and interview candidates right before the council meeting on the 20th? That would give us enough time to look at that application process. Is that okay? And then hold a special workshop. We'll start at 6 on the 20th for a workshop to interview
Yeah, I mean,
candidates.
that works for me, as long as we can swear them in that evening.
Okay.
And then, on any of the applications, we can discuss, and, I mean, as long as there's not a quorum, we can discuss between ourselves, the candidates as well.
I-
Are you going to open?
do that.
No, I mean, once they're
So
all,
you're going to open
once
on
it's
the
all
8th
done.
and close on the
Can't we?
15th? Is that what you're
You
going
can
to
do
do?
that here.
That'd be
and
7
open
days.
then. I don't think you want to.
Or are you going to open on the 12th and close on the 16th?
Okay,
No, you
let's,
can do that. You still
for
have
a
7 days.
point of clarification, just real quick, Mr. Vice Mayor, if I could. So if we open the application period tomorrow, the 7th, which is 7 days, we'd receive them on the 14th. That would be ideal for us for agenda purposes. Because if we were to call a special meeting, we'd need 48 hours notice. And we wouldn't have time to do that and have a meeting next week. But we will on the 20th.
Right,
To have your special workshop.
right, starting at 6.
Yes, sir. So if we had the application period open until the 14th, close it end of day on the 14th, We could distribute the agenda and the applications. We could distribute the applications the next day, no problem.
Right.
But the agenda would come out on the 16th, just as normal, unless there's a reason for it to be sooner. Is that?
That's fine.
Well, you could actually distribute the applications as they came in, right?
We could.
Why
Could.
wouldn't you?
Might be a little easier to keep them all together, but if you want them when they come in, that's fine. It makes me no difference.
Okay, so I think the motion is that we will open an application process starting on the 7th. The city will post to the website and open a Dropbox that will go to Guthrie Human Resources Department, Liz Botello, and City Clerk Ken Biggs. Those applications, once the application process is closed on the 14th, will be distributed to the members of the City Council. We will hold a special workshop on the 20th of August before our regularly scheduled meeting at 6 p.m. to interview applicants. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's the motion.
5 o'clock.
Close it at 5 o'clock, yes.
On the 14th,
On the
so
14th.
you would receive them the morning of the 15th.
Right.
Chris, did you get all that for the page?
No talking, Chris, no
Yeah,
talking.
don't confuse him.
That would be the motion if anyone would like to.
So moved.
There's been a motion made.
Second.
There's been a motion made, seconded, and laid upon the table. Any further discussion? Cast your vote.
All votes are in.
Post the vote, please. Having received a majority of those elected to and constituting council, the motion passes, which brings us to item 16. Without objection, we will stand adjourned.
Okay.
I will call to order the Guthrie Public Works Authority's regular meeting of August 6, 2024. The time is 8:49. The second item on the agenda is the consent agenda as posted. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as posted? Does anybody want any items removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none. There's been a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded and laid upon the table. Cast your vote by electronic device.
All votes are in.
Please post the vote. Having received a majority of those elected to and constituting the authority board, the motion passes. Item number 4, change order number 1 with Slattery Construction. Mr. Maker.
Vice Mayor, Council, this change order is simply adding 60 additional days to the contract. No change in price to the contract due to the additional days that OG&E is taking to get us 480 volts to the lift station site for the upgrade to the pumps.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion made, seconded, laid upon the table. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, cast your vote by electronic device.
All votes are in.
Please post the vote. Having received a majority of those elected to and constituting the authorities board, the motion passes.
Now you can say something.
Without objection, we stand adjourned.